Woman obsesses over neighbor, husband objects and intimate connection is revealed. Hillary Harris stared out her window at her neighbor taking in her shopping. There was something so magnetic about her. She couldn't stop staring at her eyes, they were so beautiful and blue, the same color as Hillary's. She could just swear they had met before, maybe in her wild days at college. Either way, she was all Hillary could think about. She voyeuristically continued to watch her until a voice made her jump. It was her husband, Lance. She snapped herself out of her trance and stood up to go to see what he wanted. However, her lovely neighbor lingered on her mind. Hillary Harris and her husband Lance had been happily married for a few years and had a daughter called Jessie who was 5. Hillary had always been wild and adventurous at heart and had loads of crazy encounters with many people, both men and women, throughout her life. Her marriage to Lance was strong, but there was something about her next-door neighbor that lit some old fire inside her. She felt a serious connection to her and she didn't know why, but it felt good. Her obsession was under control for now, but this was just the beginning for Hillary. Hillary's obsession continued to grow day by day. When Lance left for work and Jessie was at school, she would drive home and spend the day watching her neighbor through the sweet spots she discovered that looked right into their house. She observed her neighbor with her husband and thought she was far too good for him. He was huge and mean-looking, and they never seemed to look happy together. Hillary didn't realize it yet, but she was going to make her way happier than her husband ever could. Hillary hadn't ever felt like this about anyone in her entire life. Something deep inside her was stirring, and she had no idea what it was, but she was under her neighbor's spell. Her developing feelings were making her increasingly distant from her husband Lance. She used to kiss him every day when he came home from work, but these days she barely acknowledged him. He could sense something was up with her, but she never imagined he would end up encouraging her to get close to her neighbor. Hillary was out collecting her mail from the mailbox when she saw letters addressed to her neighbor in their shared mailbox. Her name was Dawn Johnson. Not what she imagined her name might be. She turned around and jumped with shock as Dawn stood right behind her. "Hey there neighbor, I'm Dawn, we haven't formally met yet," she said with a kind smile. Hillary blushed immediately and stammered, "I'm Hillary, it's a pleasure," as they shook hands. Then the two women stared deeply into one another's eyes and held onto the handshake a few seconds longer than necessary. "Excuse me," Hillary said breathily and ran indoors. They had a connection, she was sure of it. That night Hillary lay awake tossing and turning, thinking about Dawn all night long. What was it about her that drew Hillary to her so much? Hillary just had to explore her new feelings. She had a gut feeling and she knew she had to take the plunge. She decided to take action and to tell Dawn about her feelings for her. However, before she got to do that, she received a piece of information about Dawn that would confirm her feelings for her completely. Lance was becoming increasingly upset with Hillary's distance and demanded to know what was going on with her. When confronted, she burst into tears. "Is it about our neighbor?" he asked. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "You need to contact Rhonda and make sure your feeling is correct, honey," urged Lance, hugging her tightly. Hillary's gut feeling was about to change her life forever. After talking with Rhonda for a good hour, Hillary had gotten all the information she needed to tell Dawn how she felt. She went out to the mailbox again, just to validate everything one last time. She picked up a letter addressed to Dawn Johnson and read her name over and over. She had to be right about her. Hillary always trusted her feelings and Dawn made her feel like a totally new person when they spoke. They had a connection, she was sure of it. She was so nervous. She had to tell her how she felt, or she would be stuck in limbo like this forever. However, if she had misjudged who she thought Dawn was, she could seriously embarrass herself. As she stared into Dawn's house watching to see was she around, Hillary snapped. That was it. No more pathetic peeping Tom behavior. It was time to get an answer from Dawn once and for all. Hillary rushed over to Dawn's to pound down her front door. It was time, no more pretending. After a minute, Dawn answered. "Hillary. What on earth is the matter?" she asked with a puzzled expression. "Dawn, I have to know, was your father a man named Tom Johnson?" asked Hillary with a crazed look on her face. "Yes," Dawn said quietly. "How did you know that?" she asked. "Dawn, I'm your sister, honey, I was given up for adoption after I was born," sobbed Hillary. "There was something about you that drew me to you, and I'm so glad I was right," she cried as the two women hugged. This discovery would change both their lives forever. The shock discovery enriched both women's lives on so many levels. For starters, Dawn got to meet the niece she never even knew she had, Jessie, who warmed to her auntie instantly. This delighted Hillary so much. They had so much catching up to do, and both sisters couldn't thank each other enough for how happy they made each other since discovering their secret bond. Their bond had only just begun. Lance was so delighted that his wife had finally managed to track down her birth sister. He knew just how important this was to her and had spent years encouraging her to start looking. He never would have imagined that she would turn up right next door to them. The two families have since become inseparable, as if no time had ever passed at all. Hillary could not be happier if she tried.